I'm a developer advocate at Google. I work on Buzz. You can follow me on Buzz over there. So what we're going to be talking about here are Google's Buzz APIs. So if you attended the earlier talk, so how many of you attended the earlier talk by Chris Chabot? Great. So Chris's talk was an introduction to Buzz, what the product was about, and what the APIs can do. What I'm going to be looking at is what the APIs can do for you. So not so much telling you this is what the APIs are, but instead telling you how you can use them to do stuff that makes your services, your websites, your applications better. So it's about you rather than about us. So we'll begin by just looking at why you should develop on Google Buzz. So the big obvious one that most people will see is that Buzz is a really great photo sharing platform. So you post photos there. You may have seen me wandering around with my camera. So I really care about photography. So that's one of the most important things for me. It has this incredibly fast light box that lets you flick through the photos really quickly. It's a great place to have conversations. It's got integration to Gmail, into Profiles. It's got a mobile client. It's got integration to Google Maps. There are a variety of applications which make the individual developers who built these quite a significant amount of money. So what you're looking at are apps including Bazooka, which is the newest one. It's an iPhone app. It came out about 3 weeks ago, written by one developer. That's DHS Buzz. Again, one developer in his own spare time. And that's Buzzy.
I just wonder if you could maybe move your mic a bit.
OK, is that better? Great. So if you have any questions or can't hear me, please just do what he did. Thank you. So the last one is an application called Buzzy, written by a Spanish developer. So these have been written by developers all over the world, ranging from Singapore to Spain. We also have some applications written by companies, ranging from TweetDeck, which is a London-based company, to Seismic, which is a San Francisco-based company. And the screenshots come from a website built by some Buzz users. So why do you care? The big advantage that Buzz gives you is that you have a passionate community of tens of millions of people who are having interesting conversations which you can then use in your own services. So I'm just going to go through the basics of using the Buzz API. So if you saw Chris Chabot's talk earlier, he talked about how Buzz is built on a set of standards. I'm not going to go through them again, but I'm instead going to focus on the problems that you have and how these things can help you solve them. So, first question. Who here uses the same password on more than one site? Just those 5 people? Be honest. I work at Google. I could find out. So the point is that this blog has research from somebody who shows that 92%, that's 9 out of 10 users, use the same password on multiple sites. Which means if I set up a little site that shows cat pictures and I get them to create a password, that password will work everywhere. Which means if I set up that cat picture website, you log in, I can now go to Google and log into your website and use checkout and buy things. I can go to Amazon and order fridges and cars and all manner of things, and you pay for it. So passwords are bad. I mean, they're clearly bad for users. They're also bad for you as a developer, because somebody comes to your site and the first thing they see is, please give me a username, please pick a password. And the user basically either uses the same password they've used everywhere, which means you now have to store it securely, or they just give up and leave your site, and you've lost them. So basically, passwords are bad for the user, they're bad for developers, and they're bad for the web in general. Because the first time your Amazon or PayPal account gets hacked because you use the same password in multiple places, you become afraid of the web. You become less likely to buy things on the web. You become less likely to use things on the web. So this is a big problem. So we worked with a bunch of people at Twitter and Facebook and Microsoft and something called Oauth. Has anybody here heard of Oauth before? Great. So the basic idea of Oauth, well, has anybody here used something called Valet Parking? So I don't drive, but the basic concept is that when you turn up at a fancy restaurant, you turn up in your car. Instead of parking, you get out. You give them a special custom key, and then they go and park your car. But they can't steal your car because the key only gives them limited privileges. So OAuth is the same principle. Instead of giving a new site your username and password, you give them a token. And this token gives them limited access to your account. So the basic flow of this, now OAuth is a little complicated. In fact, it's complicated enough that we call what I'm going to show you the Oauth Dance. So the basic thing is your application goes to Buzz and gets a token, an unauthorized token. But this token proves that it's you, it's your application. You then ask the user, hey, do you want to log in with your Google account? The user clicks yes. You send the user back to Buzz in this case, and it's got your unauthorized token. Buzz now gives you an authorized request token, and then you exchange this thing for an access token. So what's happened here is in the first request, you proved it was you making the request. In this request here, the user proved it was them. So when we give you this access token, we know your application definitely made the request, and it was a user who made that request. And now that you have this token, you can do things on behalf of that user. You can post, you can delete stuff if you wanted. The nice thing about this is that OAuth works pretty well, but we went a little bit further. So we looked at the scope variable there, and we said, it's odd, isn't it? That when I use Twitter, and I try some new Twitter app, and it sort of calculates my influence or something, it can tweet as me and tell my friends, go buy this thing. Or it can read my DMs, or delete them, or send them to other people. That seems a little scary. So we said, well, what you should do is be able to give things restricted access. You should be able to say, this application gets read-only access to my account, because all it is going to do is calculate a score. This application gets read-write access, but I trust it more. So that's one way we expanded it. The other way is something that's not covered in the slide, but it's something we call XOAuth display name. It just means that when the user posts to Buzz, they get a friendly name for your application, and people who see that post can click on it and see the other posts by your application. So what does that actually look like? Well, you make that request to us. This pops up. I'm not going to show it to you because if I use it, it'll be in check and I won't be able to read it. You might be able to, but I won't. So basically what you can see here is the application is asking for the ability to read and write to your account. You can see that it's the Buzz API PHP client. We ask you twice, just to be sure you really did mean to do this. There is a plan to simplify this. So what that's achieved is that the user, when it comes to your site, they don't need to log in, they don't need to create a password, which means the user's better off and you're better off because more of your users will convert. So who here uses something called Friendfeed or has used it? We've got one person. So back in 2008, Friendfeed was a very small site. It had a few tens of thousands of users. But as you can see from the slide, it was hitting Flickr 2.9 million times a day. So the problem with this is that most people who were using Friendfeed weren't posting photos all day, every day. So Friendfeed was making requests to Flickr every half an hour for each single user. So it was as if they thought that a session like this would consist of me talking for 45 minutes, but then twice during it, I'd pick up my camera, and I would do this, and then upload it to Flickr. Well, that even overlooks the fact that at some point I sleep. So we have this same sort of problem. Small sites are polling big sites in a big way. What this means is that if you're a big site, somebody is using your bandwidth, using vast amounts of it and delivering no value to you. If you're a small site, it's bad for you because what will happen is people will just block you. And now your site is useless. If you're a user, this is even bad for you because if they check the site twice an hour, then if you upload a photo at 8:01, nobody sees it till 8:30. It's too late by then. What you want is a system where minimal bandwidth is used on both sides, but the moment you post a photo, or you make a tweet, or you post a blog article, everybody sees it instantly. So we came up with something called PubSub Hubbub. Now that's ridiculously hard to pronounce, so we call it push. Push is simpler to pronounce, but also it tells you what it does. The basic idea is that publishers push to subscribers. So if you think about what we've done, you have something like Google Reader. You post a new blog post, Google Reader finds out, and people should see instantly. But how do we make that happen? So the way we make it happen is we add a new entity we call a hub. And the basic idea here is that the subscriber is going to make a request to the publisher, to the blog in this case, and say, give me your feed. And at the top of the feed, there'll be a link to the hub. So from that link, the subscriber can then say, oh, good, I'll give a subscription. I'll make a subscription at the hub. So I'll tell the hub, I am interested in all changes to this feed. Now, because nothing stops me from just subscribing to hubs on your behalf, the hub does this little check to make sure it really is you. And once that's happened, whenever you write a new blog post, whenever you have a new photo on Flickr, the content will get pushed to the hub, and then the hub will push it to the subscriber. Now, of course, there's always this scenario where you have an old-style feed that doesn't do push. What do? Well, in the long run, the way we solve this is that everybody moves towards push. We've seen sites have 90% bandwidth reductions just from using this. And I'm not talking about small sites. I'm talking about Google scale services. Get the 90% reduction in their bandwidth use just by switching to this. As we'll see later, implementing a push publisher can be done in as little as 3 lines of code. So for the old style ones, until they move, the hubs can also do polling. So the point is, the publisher pushes the content to the hub, and then the hub tells all the subscribers. And the beauty of this system is that there's only one push from the publisher to the hub, one request. Then the hub fans it out, which means, firstly, this happens in a matter of seconds. Secondly, there's a massive bandwidth saving for everybody. So the vision for this is that in the long run, there won't just be one giant hub. So when we first proposed this, people's immediate reaction was Google's trying to take ownership of the entire web by putting one thing in the middle of everybody. But actually, what's happened with our help is that lots of people have built their own hubs. Some people have worked out that they could make a business providing hubs for other people. Some people have worked out that they could make a business writing subscribers. Well, I've written one, for instance. So the point of this is that you get an ecosystem where there are many publishers, many subscribers, many hubs, all interoperating with each other. If you have questions, please feel free to ask.
So hub is built not by Google, but it's by kind of third parties, right?
Anybody can build a hub. So the question was, is the hub only built by Google? So Google has a hub, and we let people use it for free. Companies like 6apart also have hubs for their blogs. I believe that other companies are building hubs just for their own content. There's a company run by a guy in France called Julien Genereux, who's building a hub that he charges people money for. The code to the Google hub is open source, so you can take that and deploy your own version to run an app engine. I run a hub, just me on my own. The point is, anybody can do a hub. Does that answer your question? Thank you. So, when we have a question back. Okay, so the question is, does the client keep a socket open, and how is the content getting to the client? So let's go back. So the point to be clear about here is that the subscriber is a server. This is not a desktop technology. So the content goes from a publisher's server to the hub, which is also a server, to a subscriber, which is a server. Then the subscriber can choose how that content gets to the desktop. So a classic example of a subscriber is Google Reader. If you've got Google Reader open and somebody you're following publishes a new blog post, it turns up in Reader. But the push protocol only talks about how the content gets to Reader. How it gets to your desktop is out of scope.
So should I call the hub to get information from the hub, or hub regularly call subscriber?
So the question was, should I call the hub to get information, or does the hub regularly inform the subscriber? So the basic idea is that the subscriber will talk to the hub at the beginning to set up a subscription. From then on, the hub will push any updates to the subscriber. There are extra bits to deal with what happens if the subscriber is not available, to make sure retries are happening. There will be things to double check subscriptions to make sure somebody didn't slip in a malicious subscription. But for the most part, the publisher pushes to the hub pushes to the subscribers. So we have this really nice protocol, and somebody said, you know, we should have some data in this. So what we've been doing is for various Google products, including Buzz, we're building something we call a fire hose. The basic idea of a fire hose is that it's a push-enabled feed of every piece of content in your service. So Flickr has one. Well, Flickr doesn't have one. Twitter has one. Buzz has one. Buzz's one is free and open to anybody. You just simply use the push protocol, subscribe to an Atom feed using push, and then we'll send you every single public blog post, Buzz post rather. And then about 2 hours after that, your site will go down because we're sending you every single Buzz post. So the fire hose is nice because it means you can consume every piece of information going into Buzz and then do stuff with it. And you don't have to sign any contracts with us. There's no backroom deals. You just simply go to the website, get the URL, put it into your application. So the problem with this is that we had this really nice fire hose, and everybody loved it, but nobody could actually use it because it just sent you so much traffic. So we built something we call the garden hose. And the basic idea behind the garden hose is, well, if we send you 1 QPS, so 1 query per second of data, then you can set up an App Engine app that uses the free quota and consumes that data. So you can do your development without having to worry too much about the cost because it's free because you're below the cap from App Engine. And only once you've got something that works can you decide if you want to scale it up to the full fire hose. And remember, as Buzz gets bigger, the fire hose gets bigger. The garden hose stays at a constant size. And obviously, as time goes on, more and more Google services will have fire hoses. And of course, they'll also have to have garden hoses. Because imagine you got a fire hose of every piece of content in web search. You know, that would be a lot. So we have the fire hose, which sends you every piece of public content. We have the garden hose, which sends you a limited sample of that content. But the fundamental model of this is still broken. Because what happens here is we send you all the data, and then you store it, and then pick out the bits you want, and then delete the rest. Now, with very few exceptions, we have more servers than you do. So it seems a bit silly for us to send you the data and you do the processing. So we built Track to solve this problem. So the idea with Track is that, what if you could set up a query and say, whenever something matches this query, tell me about it. So you could do something like, whenever anybody mentions my name, tell me about it. Whenever anybody mentions my favorite football team, tell me about it. Whenever anybody mentions my favorite football team and they're within a kilometer of this spot, tell me about it. So imagine you were building a site for a football team. You could say, whenever anybody mentions the team and they're within a kilometer of the stadium, put it into our feed. So that's the kind of thing you can do with Track. If you think of Track as, well, the technical term is a prospective search. It's a search of the future. However, most people sort of didn't really understand this. So I built something called the Buzz Chatbot. And let me show you what it... So if you've got internet access, you can look at it over there. If you don't, you can look at it here. So the Buzz Chatbot looks a little like this. This is the website for it. It's an App Engine app. It's open source. It's in Python. And basically, it gives you a chat client for interacting with Buzz. So what does it actually look like in real life? Well, you get this thing. You can do help, and it'll tell you, hopefully, all the commands that are available, which means you can do things like you can post a message to Buzz. So I can say, talking about Buzz in Prague, and it's a GDD. And so what should happen is it's posted it, The track feature kicks in, as you can see, and tells me that somebody said something that matches one of my previous search terms. As you can see, one of my search terms is GDDCZ. So that's the track feature kicking in. Now, because I just posted, I can go to my Google profile, and there's the post. So basically, this means I can interact with Buzz over XMPP in somebody's chat client. But that's not all. Let's see what else we can do. So I've shown you that you can post, you can track stuff. Eventually, we're to do search, and pretty much all the operations will be available through chat. But what I want to show you now is the code behind this. Because people always see these demos and they think, wow, this must be really complicated. And so what I want to show you that the code for all of this is very simple. So let's begin with something that everybody always starts with. You build a new thing, you need to be able to give it OAuth access to the user's account. So I'm just going to show you the Oauth Dance, and then show you the code for this, and then go from there. So I've just removed the bot's access to my account. So if I try to post now, it will fail. So if I do post, this should fail. It fails because I don't have access. So you do this, and it does the redirect to the site. You see it says anonymous. That's because I didn't register. So we encourage people to register with Google because the user gets a better experience. We tell them this is who you're giving access to. So I choose to trust me. And then we end up back at my profile. So what you're seeing here is an application that's getting access to my profile. You'll see later on why this is so valuable. But the important thing to notice is it has my full name. It has a photo of me. It has a little description of me. These are all things that I put into Buzz and which this app can pull out. So how does that actually work? Well, the code for the Buzz chatbot is on GitHub. You can see it at github.com/adewale/buzz-chat-bot. The Oauth code is actually fairly simple, and in fact, I recommend you just rip this off, because that's what I did. Admittedly, I ripped it off from a project I built, but the principle's valid. So what we have is I store the request token, the access token, and here's a little trick. Don't just store the access token. Store the email address of the user as well. Otherwise, it will be incredibly hard to debug what's going on, because some user will tell you something's not working, and you'll say, I can't tell. If you've got the email address, you can check the database to see if there's an OAuth token belonging to that email address. And then you can tell them, oh, you didn't sign up properly. I learned that the hard way. So what actually happens? Well, I have a little thing I call the dance starting handler, and basically all it's doing, checking if I have a token. If I don't have a token, it's going to create a request for this authorization URL, which is going to have all the parameters that are needed. It's going to send the user off when they click on that link to Google. Google's going to approve it. It'll go through a bunch of steps on Google's site. Then Google's going to redirect it back to me. And when it does that, I need a dance finishing handler. If I started a dance, I need to finish it. And so this is the dance finishing handler. And all it does is simply say, I've finished the dance, I log who it's for, I get the token, and then I make sure that that token, the access token here, gets stored in a database. And then, because I'm being clever, I then send the user a chat message to tell them, hey, you just signed up. So that if somebody did sign up as you, you'd know about it. And because we have the email address, we can store that as well. So the point here is, I have the token, I have the email address. Now that's all very well and good, but the question you're probably asking is, how do I get the profile information? Because that must surely be hard. Because one of the problems you have with a new site is you want users to share personal information with you. And they probably don't want to, not again. So the nice thing about Google is that we have over 1 billion users who've already shared information with us. And if you go through the Oauth Dance, they can give you restricted access to this. And then you can use it to make your site more interesting. So how does that actually work? Well, here's some more code. I hope you can all read Python. So what I have is a little thing that uses our new Python library. And those 2 lines of code, I build the API client, and then I do API client.people.get user ID equals me. So basically, because this is running as a particular user, and I have that particular user's token, I can say, get me information about that user. And I get a JSON object that has the name, the email address, the photo, the description, whatever other information they'd shared with Google. So basically, this gives you the same information as this page. So as you can see, it's very easy to get informative information about a user. So you've got users' information. You've got OAuth access to their account. What about push? What about tracking? How does that work? Now, this sounds like it's going to be difficult. So let me show you the whole code. So I have a track command that you can type in your chat client. So there's a chat client. List will tell me the list of commands or keywords that I'm tracking, one of which is GDDCZ. Who here has a distinctive name? As in a name that is unique or that stands out. What about you? What's your name? Okay. That's a little... Okay. So what's your full name? Okay, like that? Like that? Or this? Okay. So if I track that term, so I've now set up a subscription to be told whenever anybody mentions that word. Well, nobody has. If any of you have a laptop, you could type that word into Buzz. So if anybody gets online and does that, I'll show you the code. And then by the time I finish showing the code, hopefully somebody will have made a post that mentions you. Somebody, please. So what happens with track? So I tried track the keyword I was interested in. It worked out that you really did type a message because you don't want to track the empty string. That would be a bad idea. So it gets the message, it pulls it apart, and then it does this. Self-tracker.track gives it a message sender, so we know who we're tracking it on behalf of, so that when we get the notification, we know who to send it to. That's really important. So how does that work? Well, let's show you. So I have a tracker class. And if you look at the track method of this, all it does is make a pub, sub, hub, or push subscription. And the code for that is basically work out your email address, build a URL for the query. And if you look at the code for that, building a URL for the query is just this. So if you've ever done a Buzz search, it's basically the same query for search, but with the word track where it's used to say search. And then I use a little class I already built that does subscriptions. So let's show you that one, because people will always tend to think that things like this, subscriber.subscribe, are doing clever magic. And I want to show you that it's not. So this is the hub subscriber class. That's it. Those 22, 21 lines of code do subscription and unsubscription. So to subscribe, all I do is talk to the hub, pass in a bunch of parameters to say, when you find stuff that matches, this is the URL to tell me about it on. Otherwise, the hub doesn't know where the subscriber is. I want to subscribe or I want to unsubscribe. The URL I want you to check. And then you're supposed to have a secret to confirm it's you. By the way, mine is some secret token. It's open source, so it's not very secret. And then all it does is an HTTP post. And you're subscribed. It's that easy. So the point is, you do all that, which is what, 30 lines of code, And in fact, I could use stuff that was already existed. And there are hub subscribers in Java, Python, Ruby, pretty much every mainstream language. So that's how easy it is to subscribe. It looks like nobody has mentioned you. Oh no, they did. Somebody did. Let's see who that was. Oh, okay. Did they just delete the post? Oh, I know why. It's because I got the URL wrong. So who is Miloš Lenok? So, you're famous. But the point is, we made up a unique word and you saw stuff. If you want to see something interesting, what if I do something silly like track Google? Now I see anytime anybody mentions Google on Buzz, which isn't actually that much. The fun thing is if you make the mistake of tracking a word like the, then what will happen is will get attacked by thousands and thousands of messages per second, and eventually will shut you off. But the point is, you can track and you just see the messages coming in. There's a bit of a delay here because it's going over chat and it's going over the internet here. But this thing can basically just keep sending you traffic. Let me just untrack. So if that works, I should stop getting messages. Hooray, thank you. So let's just do one more thing. I'm just going to say thanks to Jan. Is that right? And it's Baby for helping with the demo. And what should happen, there's a post-it. And hopefully, if I spelled it right, okay, maybe I didn't spell it right. Jan Tajik. Yep. Oh. Okay, for some reason that hasn't worked. But usually it works. I may have overloaded something. I probably shouldn't have subscribed to Google. But the point of this is to show you just how easy it is to use things like track, using the libraries we've already built, the open source examples we've given you. But, you know, this is still a lot of work. It should be easier than this. So one day while I was having breakfast, I thought, why is this so hard? So whilst I was still having breakfast, I went to my website. I should point out, I'm the world's worst web designer. This is a 10-year-old website. It still uses tables. I'm really bad. So while I was having breakfast, I thought, I should add something dynamic to my website. So let me just hit reload. It doesn't use Ajax. I'm really bad. So you can see the post from my Buzz account here. So you're probably wondering if this must have been really complex, clever code. No, I went to the documentation and I cut and paste the following lines of code. So I cut and paste that into my website. And basically all it does is make a request to Buzz, get a thing, and then write it directly into the HTML of the web page. And now I have a feed of Buzz posts on my home page. And this is cut and pasted from documentation. I think I changed one line. Yes, I changed this bit, the comment. That's what I changed, to put my name in there rather than somebody else's name. But the point is, so the question was, does this mean that for each visitor of my site, it will hit the APIs at Google? And the answer is yes. As I said, this is really bad, and I just cut and pasted it from the documentation. But it works fast enough, because when you reload the site, and my site doesn't get much traffic.
You said before that your application has to be kind of identified, so it should have kind of name.
So go on. So the question was, I said before that the application has to be identified and you have to provide some kind of name. And how can you do this from JavaScript? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. We offer anonymous access to public information. So this only shows you public posts. And anybody can get that because it could just easily turn up in web search. If you're trying to do OAuth in JavaScript, it's actually quite hard. And in a few weeks' time, I was hoping to get it ready for today, but I haven't finished it. You'll have a library that will basically be able to cut and paste 2 lines of JavaScript into your web page, and then somebody can log into your website or go through the Oauth Dance and fetch private information and put it into your website. That will be ready in a few weeks' time. So it'll be possible for people who want to do fancy stuff with JavaScript to just cut and paste from their examples a couple of lines. If you use something like LinkedIn APIs, it'll be as easy and as simple as that. Hopefully even simpler. But for what I'm doing here, it's all public information, so you don't need to identify yourself. So the point I've shown you there is that you can build applications that range in simplicity and complexity from something like a Buzz Chatbot to cutting and pasting from the documentation into your website whilst having breakfast. Or you can do other things. We have the full documentation. We have the old-fashioned client libraries we did when Buzz launched. But we also have new experimental client libraries we're trying that are going to be for a much wider variety of languages. So the initial client libraries for Buzz were for Python, Java, and PHP. What we've basically done is started again and said, can we do more languages this time if we find a way to generate them dynamically? And so what we have now are PHP, Python, Java, Ruby. We'll eventually, well, in a few weeks' time, there'll be a JavaScript library, then a .NET library, ActionScript, JavaScript, Objective-C. Have I missed anybody? Perl? That's a good idea. I'd forgotten. OK, we haven't done Perl. In fact, I don't know. We're not working on Perl, but thank you for reminding me. I'll find somebody to start working on a Perl library as well. Anything else? Have I missed anybody else? Oh, good. I was worried there. So apart from Perl, we're going to have all the languages. But we'll do Perl as well. So we have startup project at Buzz Code Labs. This is so if you want to work with a fire hose and gardener hose, you can just take an existing example that does 90% of what you need and consumes the data, and then you can do interesting things with it. We also have an example called Buzz Mood to show you what you could do with this. But enough about us. What about you? So you've got a website, or you've got an application. Actually, how many of you have websites? Okay. How many of you have websites where you want to make money or you want to get lots of users? Okay, so what we're going to be talking about here is how can Buzz help you? So people come to your site, how do you make it better using our products? Well, the first and most obvious example, and it's not ready because the JavaScript library isn't ready, is a really easy login with Google button. So you'll basically paste 1 line of HTML into your website. If you've ever used YouTube embeds, it'll be that simple. You wouldn't need to understand what it is. You just simply paste the line, and a button will appear. When a user clicks it, a window will pop up. They will log into Google. They'll come back to your site, and they'll be logged in. And you'll have profile information, a little picture, information about the user. If they're already logged in, they'll click the button. The page will change, and they'll just be in. It'll be that simple. So this solves the problem of people coming to your site and then leaving because you asked them to register. So this will be good for the users because they don't have to put their password into lots of places. It'll be good for you because you'll get more users. The other thing we can do in this environment is we can bring the user's friends to your site now. Because when they log into your site, you can pull in their friends and show them, here are your friends who are already using this site, which means they have more reason to use your site because people they care about are already there. Again, we're going to try to make this as easy as possible for you. The other thing we have is a button so you can share things like blog posts, photos, etc. with Buzz. The idea here is that you can choose what the button looks like, and then you get, you see it right there at the bottom, a little bit of HTML that you can paste into your website or your blog, and people can share the articles to Buzz, which will drive more traffic back to your site. We hope to also have a Chrome extension in, well, as soon as we finish the GDD, where we actually go off and finish the Chrome extension. So hopefully by the end of next week, there'll be a Chrome extension so that as people wander the web, they can share content back to Buzz, which means if they come to your site, it'll be easy for them to share your site to Buzz. But the point I want to make here, in terms of finishing all of this up, is that Buzz is a conversational platform. The real-time features improve the conversation because now when you post a photo, people who saw the photo can respond in seconds, which means you don't just upload a photo and then wait, hoping somebody notices it. You upload and people say, oh, you took that photo half an hour ago. Now it becomes, wait, did you just take that photo? And you go, yes. And then the other people will say, oh, you're there. You should go around the corner for lunch because they're seeing it in real time. And so the whole point of Buzz and the Buzz APIs is to give you a platform where you can showcase interesting and relevant conversations in real time that make your site better. Thank you. So, does anybody have any more questions?
Is it possible to post this image to Buzz platform from my site, for example?
So the question is it possible to post from your site to Buzz?
Yes, image and get these comments on my...
So are you asking, is it possible to embed Buzz comments on your site, or are you asking if you can upload photos from your site to Buzz? So you can upload photos from your site to Buzz. They'll get stored in a Picasa album for that user. You can also embed Buzz comments on your site. It's currently a little tricky unless you use something like Embedly. One of the goals I have for this quarter is to actually give you a nice, simple JavaScript widget. I have a lot of things to do this quarter. But one of the goals I have for this quarter is a JavaScript widget. You can say, take this Buzz conversation and put it on my website. Somebody has already built something like this for WordPress blogs, where you can have your WordPress blog, use this extension, and then comments from Buzz show up in your WordPress blog. I'm talking to one of the people from 6 Apart to get the same thing on movable type. I'm talking to the Blogger team to get the same thing there as well. So the point is, you can have these conversations and they should be able to flow around the web. In the long run, we have something called Salmon, which will let you do this in a decentralized, federated way. But in the short term, we'll give you JavaScript widgets that make this easy. So the question was, how is it with the adoption numbers of Buzz? Unfortunately, I'm not senior enough that I'm allowed to tell people numbers. However, Eric Schmidt is senior enough, and he said that Buzz has tens of millions of users. I can't tell you any numbers, but I can tell you it's growing, but I can't tell you how many, which is, yes, unfortunately, if I was on the board, I could, say things like that. But I can tell you it's growing. Given where it is in its history, it's going satisfactorily. I think it's going to get bigger as we do things like launch enterprise support, and we start letting people who are using Google Apps in universities or for their domains start to plug into this. And as the APIs get richer, we expect to see more and more integrations from more and more companies, and to see this getting extended to be integrated into more group properties. So for example, 2 weeks ago, I worked with the moderator team to add Buzz support to moderator. This morning, we launched something called Google Hotpot. It's a place rating site well, I don't know how long, since I've got so many other things to do, but soon, I hope to have integration with that as well. So the idea is, as this thing gets integration more and more things across the web, using the same open standards that everybody else can play with, Buzz will grow as a function of the size of the web. So you're asking, as the perspective of somebody who owns a site, how can I use Buzz to market to the users? Okay, there are a variety of options for doing this. One that's quite popular for a lot of companies is they set up their own profile for their company on Buzz, and they use that to push out promotions, messages. Because remember, Buzz posts can be geolocated and will turn up in Google Maps, which means you can do things like post to say, this hotel has a discount on Fridays. If you go to the bar, tell them this is the code. You can push that out. You can find interesting messages from users who've got reviews about your site, who've got complaints about your site, and interact with them. So companies like Ford and Samsung and Tor Publishing, they have Buzz accounts specifically for this. So when people say, I'm trying to do this, why isn't it working? You can interact with them. If you look at the Google Buzz account, the official one, that's exactly how we use it. When people have trouble with our product, we see it because we're using Track, and we talk to them. Which means that people say, why doesn't this work? And we say, it does work. I think you're doing this wrong. And we help them. And this is the same technology you can use to have that kind of interaction with your users.
Is it possible to use this hub architecture to track not only bus, site, but any site?
So the question is it possible to use this hub architecture to track anything other than Buzz? Yes. There are lots of companies using this to track their own functionality. The vision in the long run is to be able to track everything. So that if anything changes anywhere on the web, you find out like that. That's the long-term vision. It's just really hard. But you can build it at smaller scale for your own services already today.
It's not available, this functionality is not available right now.
So the question is this functionality available right now? Yes, it's available for things like Blogger. I think YouTube has support. There's a big list on the push website that lists all the services that currently support this. It's quite a lot. And as time goes on, more and more and more sites are doing this. All the 6-apart movable type blogs are also in on this, and more people are going to get on board. I believe you had a question.
Yeah, you provide embeddable widgets. One of them is comments, social widgets. If you want comments on my site, I can use this one.
So the question is, do we provide embeddable widgets? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
My question is, when I tried to use it, you did not support it anonymous comments. The person doesn't post under his identity, and there was no option to post anonymously, which Facebook did, so I opted for Facebook. So I'm just checking if you have others.
So the question is, do we allow people to comment anonymously in the embedded widget? And the answer is no. I think part of that is because Buzz is about conversations, and it's hard to have long-term conversations with anonymous people because you can't tell it's the same person. But I hope that in the long run, things like Blogger will support this because they already have infrastructure for anonymous commenting and for dealing with the potential for spam that brings. Buzz doesn't currently have that. I think, with any more questions? Well, thank you very much. You've been wonderful.